It's time now for Voices of the Region. Every week we hear from an area journalist about the stories they are covering. This time our guest Aaron Brown from Itasca County joined us midweek at the WDSE studios to file his update.
This week we had some big news. The Polymet company announced that it's working with Teck Resources. Now Polymet is a development company trying to develop the former LTV site near Hoyt Lakes into a copper nickel mine with some other minerals mixed in. And Teck Resources is a very old Canadian mining company working with a lot of different commodities. These two companies announced a joint venture. They're going to combine their mineral access in the Duluth complex, which is that large swath of nonferrous, in other words, non-iron minerals across northeastern Minnesota. And they would, they're going to be working together on exploring these resources, and it portends some sort of partnership in the future, perhaps with any mines or processing facilities that are built there. So it's kind of sneaky big news. We don't know exactly what it means, but I always like to point out that with mining, you don't necessarily want to follow the politics of it to know what's really happening. You want to follow the money, and you want to follow the company's behind the scenes activity. That really tells you what's happening. Another mining story that I was very interested to see was that United States Steel Corporation, which owns two of the iron mines in northeastern Minnesota. That would be the Mintac, which is the largest iron ore mine in Minnesota, and Mountain Iron, and Keewatin Taconite, which is in, of course, Keewatin in Itasca County, on far eastern Itasca County. U.S. Steel announced they're going to put $150 million into a facility on the Iron Range to create a direct reduced iron pellet, which is something that feeds into the process for electric arc furnaces to make essentially pig iron that goes into these newer, more efficient and smaller electric arc furnaces. That's a value-added product that adds something to that iron ore that we've mined in northeastern Minnesota for well over 100 years. And that's important because the next phase of mining in Minnesota will need to involve value added because the iron ore isn't as rich as it once was. We've mined away most of the really rich iron ore, so what remains is lower and lower grade ores. Well, that's okay if you know how to process them and can process them on site in a way that saves money for the production of steel. So we're seeing some motion there in U.S. Steel, perhaps a little tardy, but nevertheless an important sign for those who work for U.S. Steel that the company continues to invest in those projects. And for the last almost 20 years, we've been talking about an iron ore and steelmaking facility in Nashwauk. Well, over the many years, this has been winnowed down to eventually just another iron ore processing plant. They were going to make DRI there, but this new company just ran out of money. And we just learned this week that, in fact, the city of Nashwauk, which is the major local player in that partnership between the state of Minnesota, Itasca County local government, and this new company, that they were delinquent, the company was delinquent on more than $1 million in local tax revenue, which is, for a little town like Nashwauk, if you know it, is a lot of money. And so we just found out in a story in the Mesabi Tribune that the company has apparently cut a check for half of that amount that the county has received, but that the remaining half is yet unpaid, and the company president didn't comment on when or if that money would come. The ore on the western Mesabi is running out in the pits that they're accessing right now near Hibbing and as you approach the Itasca County line. As these ore reserves run low, they have to look at what's next. And there's various problems with leases, trying to get access. There's actually highways in the way of some of these ore reserves. And so one of the biggest and most available resources is actually this old Butler land over by Nashwauk, where it's been tied up by this really failed company over on the western Mesabi. So we're watching really the chess pieces continue to move on the board And like I said, watch what's happening behind the scenes if you want to understand what's happening with mining in Minnesota. That's where you see, the real battles shape up, and it looks like we're shaping up for a battle for the future of the Iron Range in terms of its mining industry future.